Good afternoon, everybody. Eddie Webb. We are here at the New Media Lab, and we have a really nice episode today. Our mission for the year is to showcase all the amazing work that our faculty are doing across the district. And we have a really exciting group of folks here that are leading the Literacy Partners Program to the Change Agents Network. They're going to introduce themselves and their program.
Hello, everyone. Stacy Wilson, English faculty at Mesa and director of the Literacy Partners Program.
Okay, hi. My name is Michelle Jung, and I am exercise science faculty at Mesa Community College.
Hi, everyone. Alex Arreguin, English faculty also at Mesa and co-director of the Literacy Partners Program.
Stacy, could you tell us a little bit about your program? Where's the official location and the official name of your program?
Yeah, there's a little story behind that. So our origin story starts here at Mesa about 5 years ago. Alex and I had been working together. We teach first-year composition primarily here at Mesa and had always been looking for opportunities to partner with faculty outside of the English department. We always, we're telling our students that what we're doing in here, this required course, you're going to use it when you move into your other classes across the college. And then we would look at each other and say, aren't they? Because we didn't always know exactly what was going on in other courses. So we were looking for an opportunity to partner with our colleagues outside of English. And it was in that space that we thought at first we were going to create some sort of WAC program, or writing across the curriculum program, and took it in that direction. We learned quickly that it was going to be a little bigger and broader than that. But the Literacy Partners Program came from that exigence. Here at Mesa, we were able to, host 4 teams the first year. I think we had Michelle with us from exercise science. We had a team from nursing, reading, and then also sociology. Is that right, Alex?
Yep.
Yeah. So from that point, we had such success, and Michelle, I know, love her to weigh in on that, but we were able to make a case to the district that this program could and should reach more faculty. And in fact, we were looking, again, not just in that sense to partner with other faculty outside of our department here at Mesa, but really also the opportunity to partner with faculty at other colleges. We're a 10-college system. We have such great expertise, experience in all those spaces, and yet rarely is there a set time, a space for us to get together. So that was what inspired us to make the case for the Literacy Partners Program. And maybe Alex will tell you the other part of the story about how we changed it to, or in the works of changing it to, the Change Agents Network. Alex, I don't know if you want to speak more to that.
Yeah, I think a couple of reasons. The first is because we received immediate feedback that the word literacy, which is a word that obviously coming from our field in English and rhetoric and composition, it's a word we know, but we didn't realize that word meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people, especially outside of our discipline. And so anytime the invitation went out to folks to be part of this program throughout the year or during the course of the 2-week workshop in the summer, we realized, and actually I think, Michelle, you mentioned it to us one time, that that might be throwing some people off, especially folks that are coming from the sciences, STEM and so forth. And I don't know if you want to say something about that.
Sure. So for me, even I know what literacy is, and I know it doesn't just involve reading, but for whatever reason, that still did cross my mind when I would get the invitation. I thought, well, I don't teach reading. I don't know if this is really relevant for me, but let's do it. Obviously, I know that there's financial literacy. There's literacy in everything. It's not related to that. But I heard the same comment from other people when I would say I'm in this program. They're like, oh, you're learning about reading skills or how to teach reading. And it's so much more than that. So I felt like it didn't encompass what the program actually was. So I did come to them about possibly changing the name to draw people into it more with an open mind.
Yeah.
So Alex, when we talk about in the English department, when we talk about literacy, we talk about competencies, and we talk about how those align with our accreditation. How do you incorporate that field of thought, the competencies of what a student is supposed to learn in a class, and then how that bridges across to literacy?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes when we think about competencies, we have to think about a particular set of skills, right? Discrete set of skills that can be then assessed. And I think that's a starting point. And I think early on, we knew we wanted to adopt a definition of literacy that, yes, addressed that, but also encompassed and addressed the social nature of literacy and the social historical nature of literacy that really took into account students' lived experiences, right? It took into account where they were coming from, both the social and the economic capital that they had, and how all of that impacted their ability to engage in different communities, specifically different disciplines and majors. So that, I think, from early on, we knew that we wanted to broaden the scope of literacy beyond just the way it's even sometimes conceptualized within higher ed, even within English departments as well. And I'll say this, just one more thing, that in addition to us wanting to maybe not necessarily highlight literacy as much because of the people's unfamiliarity with it, but we landed on the name change, because what we've realized is that when in the years that we've been working with faculty, that oftentimes the changes or they really want to change, right? They want to change something. And we wanted to highlight that was a huge part of what this program was all about, is being able to give people a place and a time for them to make a change about XYZ, whatever that might be. And that oftentimes that change actually had nothing to do with literacy. So that's another reason why when we were thinking of a new name, it wasn't just a response to maybe the narrowed way that people might have been thinking about literacy, but it was also us to highlight something that has been growing more and more, realization for us that this is really an opportunity for faculty to come together and create change, positive change.
And I think I'll just add to that, our focus on literacy, there was a big change to that. But another important piece, even in the initial naming of this program, was the idea of partners and partnership, because that was another, as I kind of said earlier, another piece that was missing in a lot of what we were seeking, is a place to come together to work, with others outside of our discipline, which even sometimes that's hard to do, is to work with the people you're next door to in your office. But certainly the idea of having a space where we could step in with exercise science, with nursing, with reading, with psychology, with philosophy, with dental hygiene. And those are all disciplines and fields that we have been able to work with over the last 4 years. So we wanted to honor and keep an emphasis on partnerships. So as we, again, look to rebrand here, Literacy Partners program went to Change Agent and then Network. The idea that we are working together, that we are intertwined and connected, and we need to be more intentional and find space to make that happen. So I just, again, want to make sure we pointing out that idea of partnership, network, collaboration is another key principle to the program.
And I'm trying to kind of drill down on the curriculum component of that. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. So our programming, we have definitely adjusted it over the last 5 years, but at the core, we have talked about starting our program off with threshold concepts, which is an entry point that asks, again, teams, and I guess I'll make that distinction as well, as this program asks faculty to come as a team. So at least 3, 4, we've had actually teams of up to, I think, 7 or 8, but to come with colleagues from your field, from your discipline, because part of that, again, one of the pieces of threshold concept is what is it that we hold as essential to the doing, seeing, practicing, being ways of a compositionist, of an exercise scientist, and those, we all have a particular perspective, but those get more nuanced, more complex, and more detailed when we have conversations. So threshold concepts is one of the frameworks that we use early. Decoding the disciplines, which really is grounded in this idea of that, we come as experts in our field, and that's why, again, to counter the part about coming with a team of our colleagues, we also want to be in a room with other teams that we really don't think we have anything in common with. And I had said before, we had a group from theater come and speak with a group from dental hygiene. And it was important, again, to get to that idea of our expert blind spots, that if we're constantly in conversation just with those people that live and think and went through all the same schooling that we did and have a very similar cadence to their days and their thought process, we don't always recognize that because everybody leans in, everybody nods, everybody can finish your sentence. But when you're in conversation with other colleagues, faculty beyond your discipline, they give you the cocked head, the quizzical look, and they cue you in that they don't get it, right? They're intelligent graduate level colleagues, but there's some sort of blind spot there that is only triggered for us to recognize when we're in a room, in a space, and in conversation with others outside of our discipline. So decoding the disciplines is a particular framework we introduce. We have some activities, and we intentionally put people in conversation with colleagues beyond their discipline. So, how would I say, threshold concepts, decoding the disciplines, knowledge transfer, the whole theory behind, what is it that we need to do to make sure that students aren't just learning for this test, this assignment, this unit, or even this class, but what can we do in our curriculum and our pedagogy that use their prior knowledge to transfer it into our classrooms, that asks them to complicate that and builds on it, and what can we do to, again, get them to think about transferring this out into all the other spaces that they're going to live and be beyond the 16 weeks of our course. So those are some of the main frameworks. Alex, I'm sure I might be missing something.
Well, no, I think that the rationale for those frameworks was always because we did not want to go in and dictate to faculty. We didn't want them to think, here's the framework that you need to, or here's the thing that you need to do to just fix your classroom, right? What we wanted to do from the very beginning is say, look, we know that you all are coming here with particular challenges. Some of those I might understand, but some of them are very different because you are teaching a very different discipline, and how you do things in that discipline may be vastly different than how I do things. And so those frameworks, when we were really thinking about them, we wanted to ensure that the frameworks had a bandwidth, right, that can carry across disciplines, so that someone that was, once again, as disparate as, for example, philosophy and dance, that the faculty can kind of grab onto that and say, okay, yeah, we may not be teaching the same thing, but the framework allows me to engage in my problem in a similar way. So there was an intentionality behind that. And as someone who, obviously, you're coming from that exercise science background, right? And some of these frameworks are not necessarily unique to English, but there's been an uptake in composition, especially with learning transfer, right? But so, matter if you want to speak to just how any of them spoke to you in a very different way.
Sure. So for us in exercise science, it really changed a lot about how we as faculty communicated with each other. And I would say that we could consider it in a way backward design. So after our initial working in this program, we realized that as a team, we had to get together because, just like Stacy was mentioning, assumptions about, oh, you're going to use this in the future, but then thinking, oh, I don't really know if you're using it in the future. We realized that even within our own program, we were making assumptions. Where I was teaching a class where somebody else taught the prerequisite, and I assumed that this person taught this particular prerequisite. So I was teaching with that assumption, and then realizing later on that the person who taught the prerequisite didn't even consider that to be a crucial thing. And so we ended up as a team getting together and mapping our entire course, like literally every single class that we have in our program, every single program. It was a giant sheet drawing lines and arrows to which class goes where and who teaches this and then who does it go to. And all of us were able to really talk with each other and discuss, well, this is what I really need my students. If I'm teaching 200 level, in 100, they need to absolutely know this by the time they get here. So it allowed the 100 instructors to know, oh, I guess I wasn't addressing it because I had no idea that that's what you were expecting of them. And so it was just a really nice way to have that open discussion with our teams. And then when we met with other disciplines where students actually were taking prerequisites or co-requisites in another area, we could even express some of those challenges that we were having. And I think it just helps to develop a greater understanding overall of the entire scope of what students are learning, and everybody gets an idea of understanding of what my role is specifically.
Yeah, I'll also say that, so those frameworks I said, there's quite a bit of bandwidth within them, but especially TCs. The reason we start with that is because we know we're faculty ourselves. we know that we like to talk about the stuff that got us in school to begin with, right? Our first passion, which for some of us, I teach writing now, but maybe my first passion was actually literature, right? But we do like to talk about those. But the reality is that faculty life just tends to be a very solo experience. We take care of our classes, right? And when we're thinking about that, we tend to be very siloed. And I think that the TCs really provided an opportunity for faculty to talk about the things that they love, which is, your discipline. What is it that binds you? What is it that brings you together? What are the core ideas and beliefs about your discipline? And most faculty, from the moment they left grad school, they stopped having those conversations. When all of a sudden you put them in the room, and those are the beginning conversations, it's amazing how they forget that they're even in a professional development place, because they're just simply thinking, yeah, what is essential to my discipline? And of course, the reason we want them to answer that question, especially in a 100 level course, but across the courses, is because we have to be able to articulate that for ourselves before we can articulate that in a coherent way for our students, right? So that's, I think, another reason why, the rationale behind some of these frameworks.
Yeah, and I'll just, again, speak to what Michelle was saying there with the whole idea of mapping and pathway mapping and transfer. That was a huge component, is that we wanted to, remind ourselves really of our responsibility. Like, we need to build the bridges that we're sending our students on the path where they're going to come to a gap, right? A chasm. And it's like, you need to get from here over there. But we have to map that. We have to know what's next. We have to build bridges so that they're not left on the edge thinking, okay, what do I do now? And we build them by talking to the person on the other side, which is our colleague, right? We have to know and be able to help students see the connection, to prepare them to do the work. We've talked before about this idea of disciplinary whiplash, that we get to stay, as Alex said, we're in our silo, we're in our space, we're very confident and comfortable there, and we stay there Monday through Friday for our 9 o'clock class, our 10:30 class, our 1:15 class. Students go from first year composition to exercise science to maybe art history, and they don't always know that they're supposed to flip a switch, and they're supposed to put on we talk about another lens to do the work and see the world and attack this assignment in a particular way. And so that, again, comes with creating a space for faculty to come together. And we just weren't seeing that more than just, again, a single, maybe 2-hour workshop. So we have always made the case that we have an intensive 2-week summer institute, and it's pretty intense. Those are long days, although it's only really a morning, 9 to 12:30, Monday through Thursday for 2 weeks. But then we also early on wanted to offer some sort of wraparound support to be able to continue the good work that was started in the summer into the next semester and the full year. Because sometimes, again, we go in, we have an amazing experience, we're fired up, we're ready to go. Well, just the way the scheduling was for us, it was then we had 2 months off. And then you had to come back, and it's like the reality hits. And now we had this amazing change project that we all, 100% into, committed to. And then there is that just things, there's a lot that we have to do. So to add even this new thing and not have the structured support to say, okay, let's come back together. Let's put this on the calendar. Let's dive deeper into maybe a particular idea, theory, framework, question that didn't get completely answered during the summer session. Let's give that more time and attention. So Alex and I have tried to, again, be the coordinators, coaches as we could, tried to lead additional professional development opportunities throughout the year that keeps everybody going. We've been looking to help any faculty or teams that they've presented at Student Success Conference, they've presented at conferences within their own disciplines, to be any sort of support we can to keep this work going beyond just that 2-week session, because this is work that needs to get done and continue. It's never done, right?
I love this. Dr. Geelan Nelson and I used to teach the Summer Teaching Institute at ASU for Writing and Being. And it's the core curriculum, how I teach all my 101, 102s, although I've integrated the new Media Lab technology into the curriculum because I believe that we have to modernize or a curriculum to teach students to have the skills that the world they're living in and the skills that give them a good education outside of Mesa. And I think what you guys are doing, although I'm trying to make the distinction between the CTL and your program, I think it's just absolutely exciting what you're doing and how you're building a culture around teaching. I mean, you're building this beautiful culture around ideas. And to me, what I sense as I'm listening is, especially, having all this degrees, and I just went through all the leadership training and the supervisor training where someone at the top has gone to a conference, bought the latest, leadership stuff, come back. We go to these things and they're just telling us about leadership. And what you guys are doing is what I think is so important, is the most valuable person in the room is the students, and making space for them to be a part. So you're not just showing up with a curriculum, or like, this is how, you're letting people come together and talk and be true scholars and learn and share from each other. That's exciting, because I never really knew what you guys did. Because you guys don't talk much. I see you in the hallway and you shut the door. So I'm like, what do they do? Kind of like a Tom Waits song. What are they doing in there?
We've got a few publications out, some other things that we'll definitely share. And I think, Eddie, to your point, I mean, that's one of the decisions we made early, is that we weren't going to say, come to us, come join us, and we will give you all these tips and tricks to solve this problem. First of all, we can't even begin to guess what the problem or issue or barrier is in the specific context of where people are teaching. So it was always like, bring to us whatever challenge, whatever barrier, whatever problem that you and your teammates have been pounding your head against. Like, we need time, we need to give this attention. But, again, we're so busy. That's the next thing. Here was this 2-week program that said, come together. You bring us whatever issue you want to spend that time on. We're going to give you these different theories, these different frameworks. Some of them will be more helpful than others. They'll all probably allow you to see this challenge in a new or nuanced way. And then with your experience, your expertise, and then whatever new insights you can gain from this program, you are the one that is best able to put together a change plan to implement this as you move forward. So we have always tried to, again, step back from being the know-it-all, as it were, because we do not know it all.
People that attend these, do they have time in the sessions to share what they're doing, like formally? Do people get to take turns, maybe giving a lecture or a presentation and then making that the part of the discussion, or how does it unfold?
So at the end, there is a share case, right, where they are each sharing, right, each group, each team shares, here's our change plan. Here's what we are committed to trying to change over the course of the next academic year, let's say. But throughout the process, there is a lot of room and time for them to be able to not necessarily always specifically change or share their change, but they're sharing their thoughts, right, and how their conceptions around literacy, their conceptions around the curriculum, like what you were talking to Michelle, of like, okay, we used to just think of our classes as my class, but then all of a sudden I started thinking about the sequence of classes. And so we do allow time for conceptions to be shared. And all of a sudden people realize, wow, yeah, I had the same aha moment, even better. Sometimes when they'll say something along the lines of, wow, I had no idea that your discipline thought the way we think. We should talk more often, right? And that's where those amazing conversations are able to take place. One thing I do want to say, and I wonder, Michelle, what you think about this in terms of how this was manifested in your department, because Eddie, you mentioned about leadership. You mentioned that word, and so I wanted to say more about that, because early on, we didn't necessarily anticipate the challenge that while we gave faculty this amazing opportunity to come together and create these change plans, the reality is that not all of us are all of a sudden ready to implement that. We're not trained to do that sometimes, right? And the support system that Stacy and I were talking about, it wasn't just, all right, well, once this 2 weeks is over, what do we do? So we knew that we wanted to support them from a curriculum perspective. But what we realized too is that part of that support is us coming alongside them to help make that change possible. And in doing so, we didn't even realize that we were doing this, but we were trying to provide these leadership sort of lessons. Like, okay, all right, so you say you have this problem. Who's going to be able to solve this problem? Well, this problem comes with funds. All right, well, who do you need to go talk to? And I think in the very beginning, the way we had those conversations is simply, well, what did we do to be able to get this thing off the ground? But over the years, we've realized that, yes, what we're doing on the one hand is great because we are helping faculty come together to identify faculty-led, grassroots-led initiatives. But we also have to find a way to support faculty to provide them with the leadership qualities to be able to manifest those into action. And so a lot of what we've been trying to do on the publication side, even more recently, is to reflect more on that experience for us and the lessons that we've learned as faculty. And because I think in the early on, we didn't think of ourselves as faculty leaders or as leaders in that sense. Whether we saw ourselves as that or not, we had to take on responsibilities and the identity of that to be able to push this forward, right? And so I'm hoping, Michelle, like if you think about like your experience and even your chair's experience, like a lot of what you ended up doing wasn't just in the classroom.
Definitely not. The time that we have in the classroom, though, I will say, is important. If a program or department wanted to do it, the challenges are if somebody can't show up consistently or be there for a certain day or 2 days, it definitely doesn't, you don't get the full scope of it, because a lot of it is that collaborative work with each other, just talking through the issues, understanding what everybody needs. And for us, it definitely was an ongoing thing. So once the program ended, it really did open up a lot more within our own department of just saying, hey, did you try this thing that we talked about, and how did that work? Or even for me, saying to somebody who's teaching another class, can you make sure to target this particular concept and maybe utilize more applied movement with it being in exercise science, because I'm seeing that my students aren't completely understanding the application when they get to this other class. So I think it's an ongoing process of just discussion, collaboration. This just gives you that opportunity to really spend that time that you normally would not with those colleagues. So I think that that's one of the best things about the program for me, was identifying that, having that dedicated time to sit with colleagues, not just because the first year it was just Mesa. And then I want to say the last time I went, we also had district, so exercise science faculty from multiple colleges. And that was eye-opening for a lot of them to realize, oh, wow, we're all teaching the same curriculum and we all have the same course competencies, but our perspective of what each of those things mean is actually quite different. So having that opportunity to really sit down and just think through all of it was extremely valuable.
I think that is absolutely critical, amazing, and what we need. Like what you guys are doing, I think, is what, as a young person, I fell in love with education. To be around people, like I didn't grow up around people who, we were just really poor, hardworking people. And so when I would get around people who were open-minded and had this expansion in their reading, and their thinking and how they were, I really, really wanted to be a part of that. Open-mindedness, empowering community, those kinds of things really was something I'm like, I want to be a part of that,
Yeah.
And I think that's what you guys are doing. You're creating an environment and you're creating a culture for people to grow. And, people sometimes don't even know what they know until they're in a situation like this. And then they kind of like, oh yeah, I had this experience in teaching, especially at a community college. Like you have 30 different people sitting. It's not like other universities where people test in and everybody's kind of at the same prep level or, readiness or all of that. It's everywhere. And you have to be able to teach 80-year-old return student next to an 18-year-old kid who's still living at home and the spectrum in between. And so that's one of the reasons I love teaching at a community college is that challenge. And I think what you guys are doing is just absolutely amazing. We like to give our guests the last word.
So as a past participant, I just wanted to give a few thoughts on what to expect and what not to expect. I think going in with an open mind is the most important thing. Don't go into any preconceived notions of what you're going to get out of it. It's very, very different from standard professional growth where, you just go through certain things and you do them and you're done. This is really a growth process. And what you come out of it may not be, it's not going to be finalized for one. And you are very free to work on it in whatever disciplinary area you want to. So don't go into it thinking, I'm just trying to revise this one class that I'm teaching, because that's not what this is about at all. It's really about collaboration. What I love is how creative it is, the creativity in it. So again, to me, the number one thing is to go in with an open mind and recognize that there's a lot of different directions that this can go. And if you do go in with an expectation, the likelihood of that being the outcome is probably not what it is.
I love that. And I have to chuckle. So I think I said earlier, like a key component when we were first the Literacy Partners Project, like that emphasis on partners, and now the Change Agent Network, that emphasis on network is just that we really value, and we can't wait to work with anybody and all of our colleagues here, because the experience, the expertise that you all bring to the room, Alex and I are constantly learning. Like, we are becoming better teachers. I know we have adjusted our classroom spaces. The collaboration that we get to be a part of with our colleagues is so impactful. And we do, again, want to offer you a space to bring to the room any challenge, any barrier that that you've said, I need to work on this. I need to give this some time. I need to give this some attention. This is the space that you can do that in. And so we invite you to come and work with us, and we look forward to having that opportunity and to learning from you as well.
So I'll target two audiences, certainly faculty. I think I will say is that your expertise, I'll echo this, right? Your expertise matters. You are the one that knows most intimately what your classroom looks like, what your students, right? And the kind of struggles that students deal with when entering into your discipline. So I think this is a program that really does leverage that. But I will also say this, and for any administrators that might be listening across the board, really, that one of the constant, I think, themes that we've heard as we've spoken at different national conferences, for example, AAC and U, we hear from administrators that they want to engage their faculty, but they don't have a method to do so. So they want to have faculty engage in those initiatives, but they just don't know how to invite faculty to do that. And I think that one of what I hope in terms of moving forward for this is that, like, the reason we want this program to be institutionalized isn't for students, number one, for faculty, number two, but also because we do see it as a method that allows faculty and admin to come together, and for those initiatives that sometimes maybe start at the district level, that this is a method for faculty to engage in those. And so that would be, I think, my message, right, to admin listening, right, that whether it's this or something else, right, but we do need to have a method to be able to invite faculty into that important work.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm excited for you, and I hope that it is institutionalized. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And we want to thank you for coming over and showing some love for the New Media Lab and sharing your expertise and your stories. In my dad's language, we say, Dona dogo, I, wadon, dalia hiliga, wadon. Well, take care of each other. We're all we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.